The massive chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. 47 different alien species sat in their floating seats, all eyes focused on the tall, blue-skinned centauri at the center podium. Ambassador Thek's forearms trembled slightly as he held the datapad that would change everything. "Fellow council members," Thek began, his voice echoing through the vast space. "What I am about to share will shock you all. The humans, they are not what we thought they were." On the research station Meridian, Dr. Elena Brooks was having her morning coffee when the emergency alert flashed across her screen. She nearly dropped her cup when she read the subject line. "Urgent, human reclassification. All stations report immediately." Elena was one of the few humans working in deep space research. For 3 years, she had been studying alien biology alongside her colleagues from dozens of different worlds. She had always felt welcome among them. But now, something had changed. "Computer, display message," she said, her voice shaky. The hologram appeared in front of her, showing the official seal of the Galactic Council. Elena read the words twice before they sank in. "By unanimous decision of the Scientific Committee, human beings are hereby reclassified from sentient biological entities to Class 7 dangerous vessels. All humans in galactic space are to report to containment facilities immediately for assessment." Elena stared at the message. Class 7. Dangerous vessels? That category was reserved for things like unstable dark matter bombs and weaponized black holes. How could humans possibly fit into that classification? Across the galaxy, Captain James Wright was enjoying a quiet meal in his ship's dining hall when the alarm started blaring. The Pioneer was a small exploration vessel with a crew of 30 humans and 20 aliens from various species. "Captain, to the bridge immediately," came the urgent call over the intercom. James ran to the bridge where his alien first officer, a reptilian Vorthan named Kev, was staring at the scanner with wide eyes. "Sir, we have a problem," Kev said. 12 galactic enforcement ships just dropped out of hyperspace around us. They're demanding we prepare for boarding." "On what grounds?" James asked. Before Kev could answer, the main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. A stern-faced Centauri officer appeared on screen. "Captain Wright, by order of the Galactic Council, your vessel is now under quarantine. All human crew members are to be transferred to our containment ships immediately." "Containment ships?" James stood up from his captain's chair. "What's this about?" "Human consciousness has been classified as hazardous material, Captain. You and your crew pose a threat to galactic safety." James felt his blood run cold. "That's impossible. We've done nothing wrong." "The evidence suggests otherwise," the Centauri officer replied. "Prepare for boarding." Back at the Galactic Council, Ambassador Thek was presenting the evidence that had led to this dramatic decision. The holographic display showed dozens of incident reports from across the galaxy. "Consider the case of the mining accident on Kepler 442b, Thek said, his voice growing stronger. 15 human miners were trapped underground for 6 days. According to physics, they should have died within hours from lack of oxygen. Yet when rescue teams reached them, they found the miners alive and well in a pocket of breathable air that had somehow formed in solid rock." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Dr. Nix, a small, gray-skinned scientist from the Rigel system, raised one of his tentacles. "Surely that was just luck," Dr. Nix said. "Mining accidents sometimes create strange air pockets." "That's what we thought too," Thek replied, "until we analyzed the rock samples. The oxygen didn't come from any natural source. It appeared to have been created from nothing. The rock itself had been changed at the molecular level." Another hologram appeared, showing a frozen wasteland. "Then there's the incident on Europa Station," Thek continued. "A research team of 5 humans was caught in a blizzard that killed their power systems. Outside temperature, -200 degrees. They should have frozen to death in minutes. Instead, they survived for 12 hours until rescue arrived. Heat sensors showed their body temperatures remained normal throughout the ordeal, despite their suits having no power." The chamber fell silent. Dr. Vell, the Vorthon Council's top physicist, stood up slowly. "Ambassador Thek, are you suggesting that humans can somehow Change the laws of physics? That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Tech replied. But it gets worse. Show them the battlefield recordings from the Outer Rim conflict. New images filled the air above the chamber. They showed human soldiers in desperate combat situations fighting against impossible odds. In every recorded case where human forces faced complete annihilation, something impossible happened, Tech explained. Their weapons didn't run out of ammunition even when they should have. Their equipment worked perfectly despite being damaged beyond repair. Enemy targeting systems mysteriously failed at critical moments. Dr. Elena Brooks watched the same presentation from her station, feeling sick to her stomach. She recognized some of the incidents being discussed. She had written reports on several of them, always finding reasonable scientific explanations. But now, seeing them all together, a terrifying pattern emerged. The most disturbing evidence, Tech continued, comes from our own facilities. Humans working in our research stations show probability readings that are statistically impossible. They find solutions to problems they shouldn't be able to solve. They survive accidents that kill other species. They seem to bend reality around themselves. Captain James Wright was now sitting in a detention cell aboard one of the enforcement ships. Through the small window, he could see his beloved Pioneer being escorted away by alien cruisers. His cellmate was Tom Miller, a human trader who had been captured from another ship. Tom was pacing back and forth, angry and confused. "This is crazy," Tom said. "Dangerous vessels were just people." James stared out the window, thinking about everything he had experienced in his years of space travel. The lucky breaks, the times when his ship's systems worked better than they should have, the way problems seemed to solve themselves when things got desperate. "Maybe we're more than just people," James said quietly. Back at the council, the final piece of evidence was being presented. Dr. Vell took the podium, his scaled hands shaking. "Council members, I have spent months studying human brain patterns. What I found defies everything we know about consciousness and reality. Human minds don't just observe the universe, they interact with it on a quantum level. Every human thought creates tiny ripples in space-time. When humans face extreme danger, these ripples become waves, and waves can change things." The chamber erupted in frightened whispers. Ambassador Thek raised all forearms for silence. "The conclusion is unavoidable," he announced. "Humans are not just another sentient species. They are living weapons of reality manipulation. They don't even know they're doing it, which makes them even more dangerous. Every human is a walking probability storm, unconsciously altering the universe to ensure their survival." The vote was called. One by one, each species representative cast their decision. The result was unanimous. Humans would remain classified as Class 7 dangerous vessels until further study could determine how to contain or control their abilities. Dr. Elena Brooks turned off her screen and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, her entire species had just been declared too dangerous to exist freely in the galaxy. She didn't feel dangerous. She felt like Elena Brooks, a scientist who loved learning about alien cultures and exploring the mysteries of space. But deep in her heart, she knew the council might be right. Humans did seem to have unusual luck. They did survive things that should kill them. And if that was true, then everything was about to change. The age of human freedom in the BO galaxy had just ended. The age of human fear was about to begin. 3 weeks had passed since the official classification. Reports were flooding in from every corner of the galaxy, and each one made the situation worse. In the high-security archives of Luna Station, Lieutenant Kate Morgan sat surrounded by thousands of classified files, her face growing paler with each document she read. Kate had been assigned to review all human-related incidents from the past 50 years. What she was finding made her question everything she thought she knew about her own species. The first file made her hands shake. It was about a cargo ship called the Mary's Hope that had suffered complete engine failure in deep space. The crew of 8 humans should have died when their life support ran out after 3 days. But rescue ships found them alive and healthy after 2 weeks, somehow breathing normally in a ship that had no working air recyclers. "That's impossible," Kate whispered to herself. But the sensor readings were clear. The ship's oxygen levels had remained constant throughout the entire ordeal, despite having no functioning systems to maintain them. Meanwhile, on the mining colony of Kepler 4/42b, the investigation into the tunnel collapse was revealing even stranger details. Dr. Morris, a human geologist, was examining the rock formations where the 15 miners had survived. "Look at this," Dr. Morris said to his alien colleague, a 6-armed insectoid named Click. He pointed to crystalline structures, growing from the tunnel walls. "These formations shouldn't exist. The mineral composition is completely wrong for this type of rock." Click's compound eyes studied the crystals carefully. These appear to be some form of oxygen-producing matrix, but such structures cannot form naturally in this environment. "That's what I thought too," Dr. Morris replied. "But get this, the formations only exist in the exact area where the miners were trapped, nowhere else in the entire mine system." Back on Luna Station, Kate was reading about an even more disturbing case. A human child named Billy had been aboard a transport ship when a hull breach occurred. The 7-year-old boy had been sucked out into the vacuum of space through a hole in the ship's wall. In space, without a suit, death comes in seconds. But Billy had survived for 12 full minutes before rescue pods could reach him. Medical scans showed he should have died instantly from decompression, radiation, and freezing temperatures. Instead, he had somehow remained conscious and unharmed. "The boy's cellular structure shows impossible adaptations," the medical report stated. "His blood chemistry changed to function without oxygen. His skin developed temporary resistance to radiation. His body temperature remained stable despite exposure to absolute zero." Kate put down the file and rubbed her temples. Every case was the same pattern: humans facing certain death, then somehow changing the rules of reality to survive. On Europa Station, Commander Lisa Park was investigating another incident that had happened just days ago. A research team studying ice formations had fallen through the surface into an underground cavern. The 5 humans had been trapped 50 meters below the ice with no way to communicate with the surface. According to the rescue logs, Lisa told her second-in-command, a tall blue Andorian named Vex, the team should have frozen to death within an hour. The cavern temperature was -40 degrees. "But they survived for 18 hours, Vex replied, looking confused. "How is this possible?" Lisa checked her readings again. The thermal sensors show something incredible. The ice around the trapped humans actually started generating heat, not melting, generating thermal energy from nothing. The cavern became a warm pocket in the middle of a frozen moon. Far across the galaxy on the planet Rigel Prime, Dr. Vell was conducting his own research. The Vorthan physicist had been studying human brain patterns for months, and his latest discovery was keeping him awake at night. "Computer, display the neural scan from Subject 12, he said to his lab's AI system. A holographic brain appeared in front of him, pulsing with electrical activity. But this wasn't like any brain scan Dr. Vell had ever seen. The human's neural patterns were creating visible distortions in the space around them. Subject 12 was placed in a sealed chamber with decreasing oxygen levels, Dr. Vell recorded in his notes. As the oxygen dropped to dangerous levels, the subject's brain activity changed dramatically. The neural patterns began creating quantum fluctuations that somehow converted carbon dioxide back into oxygen within the chamber. Dr. Vell switched to another scan. Subject 15 was given a fatal dose of radiation. Instead of dying, the subject's brain patterns began interfacing with the radioactive particles themselves, somehow neutralizing their harmful effects. The physicist leaned back in his chair, terrified by what he was discovering. Humans weren't just lucky survivors. They were unconscious reality manipulators. Back in his detention cell, Captain James Wright was making his own discoveries. He had been moved to a maximum security facility on Titan Station, along with hundreds of other captured humans. But strange things were happening even here. His cellmate, a former military officer named Steve Johnson, was telling him about the escape attempts that had been happening throughout the station. "It's the weirdest thing," Steve said. "Yesterday, a group of humans tried to break out of Section C. They had no tools, no weapons, nothing. but every single security door they approached somehow malfunctioned and opened for them. James raised an eyebrow. Equipment failure? That's what the guards thought too. Until it happened again. And again. Then the computer system started, having glitches that always seemed to help the human prisoners. Cell doors unlocking at just the right moment. Guard rotations being delayed by computer errors. It's like the station itself wants us to escape. Dr. Elena Brooks was experiencing similar phenomena at the research facility where she was being held. She had been placed in a laboratory setting where alien scientists could study her while she worked on basic research problems. "Dr. Brooks," said Dr. Zix, a small gray alien with large black eyes, "please solve this mathematical equation. It controls the life support system for this section." Elena looked at the equation on the screen. It was impossibly complex. The kind of math that would take supercomputers hours to solve. She had never seen anything like it before. "I can't solve this," she told Dr. Zix. "This is beyond my training." "Please try," Dr. Zix insisted. "The air recycling system depends on it." Elena stared at the equation, feeling frustrated and helpless. But as she looked at the numbers, something strange happened. The solution just appeared in her mind. Not through calculation or logic, but as if someone had whispered the answer directly into her thoughts. "The answer is 8473952, she said. Dr. Zix's eyes went wide. He quickly input the number into his computer. The equation balanced perfectly. "How? Did you know that?" Dr. Zix asked, his voice shaking. "I don't know," Elena replied honestly. "It just felt right." Later that night, Dr. Zix was reporting to his superiors via secure communication. The human subject solved a level 9 quantum mathematics problem in 30 seconds, he reported. She had no advanced mathematical training, no computer assistance. She simply knew the answer. "How is this possible?" came the response from Dr. Vell on Rigel Prime. "I believe the humans are accessing information that exists outside normal space-time," Dr. Zix replied. "Their consciousness operates on quantum levels we cannot understand. They don't calculate solutions. They commune with the mathematical structure of reality itself." On the prison transport ship detention, human prisoners were being moved to a new high-security facility, but the ship's crew was reporting impossible problems. "Control, this is Captain Rax," the Centauri captain spoke into his communicator. "We're experiencing massive system failures. Navigation is offline, life support is malfunctioning, and weapon systems are completely dead." "When did these failures begin?" came the response. "Exactly when we loaded the human prisoners, Captain," Rax replied. "It's as if their presence is causing our technology to break down." In the prisoner hold, Tom Miller was talking quietly with his fellow humans. "Anyone else notice that the ship's problems always seem to work in our favor?" he whispered. "The locks on our cells keep failing. The guard schedules keep getting mixed up, and now the whole ship is falling apart." An older woman named Martha nodded. "My grandmother always said humans have guardian angels. Maybe she was right, just not in the way she thought." "Or maybe," said a young man named Rick, "we're the angels, and we don't even know it." Dr. Vell was putting together his final report for the Galactic Council. The evidence was overwhelming and terrifying. "Council members," he wrote, "humans do not simply survive impossible situations through luck or determination. Their consciousness actively rewrites local reality to ensure their survival. They interface with quantum fields that we can only access through our most advanced technology. Each human mind is essentially a biological quantum computer, capable of processing information that exists outside our normal understanding of physics." He paused, then added the most frightening conclusion of all. "The effect appears to be growing, stronger. As more humans spread across the galaxy, their collective unconscious influence on reality is increasing. We are not dealing with a dangerous species. We are witnessing the birth of a new form of existence that transcends our current understanding of life itself." Kate Morgan finished reading the last file in her stack. Hundreds of cases, all showing the same impossible pattern. Humans didn't just refuse to die, they made death refuse to take them. She looked out the window at Earth, visible in the distance, and realized that her entire species had become something beyond normal classification. They weren't dangerous vessels carrying human consciousness. They were consciousness itself, learning to reshape reality with every heartbeat. Research Station Omega-7 hung in the darkness of space like a massive metal spider. Inside its laboratories, the most terrifying experiments in galactic history were about to begin. The Galactic Council had authorized unlimited testing to understand exactly what humans were capable of and how dangerous they truly were. Dr. Nick stood in the main laboratory watching as the first human test subject was brought in. The man's name was Michael Clark, a simple engineer who had been captured from a cargo ship. Michael looked scared but determined as he was led to a transparent chamber in the center of the room. Subject 1 will now be exposed to controlled atmospheric poisoning, Dr. Nix announced to the observation deck filled with alien scientists. The chamber contains a lethal concentration of methane gas. Death should occur within 3 minutes. Michael was sealed inside the chamber. The poisonous gas began to fill the space around him. The alien observers watched their instruments carefully, waiting for the inevitable. 3 minutes passed. Michael was still breathing normally. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Vell from the observation deck. "Check the gas composition." The readings were confirmed. The chamber was filled with enough poison to kill any known life form. But Michael stood calmly in the center, showing no signs of distress. "The gas is being neutralized," reported Dr. Zix, staring at his instruments in disbelief. Somehow the toxic molecules are changing their structure when they reach the subject's respiratory system. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes passed. Michael remained perfectly healthy. "Get him out of there," Dr. Nix ordered, his voice shaking, "before we accidentally create something worse." When Michael was removed from the chamber, he seemed genuinely confused by all the excitement. "Was something supposed to happen?" he asked. "I felt fine the whole time. The air tasted a little funny, but that was all." The second test was even more disturbing. Lisa Parker, a medical technician, was brought into a radiation chamber. The levels of radioactive energy would normally kill any living being within minutes, causing massive cellular damage and organ failure. Subject 2 is now being exposed to 500 roentgens of gamma radiation, Dr. Nix announced. "This dose is immediately fatal to all known biological life." Lisa was placed in the chamber, and the radiation began. The scientists watched their scanners, in amazement as her cellular structure began to change in real time. "Her DNA is rewriting itself," Dr. Vell reported, his voice filled with awe and terror. "The radiation isn't destroying her cells. It's causing them to evolve immunity to radioactive damage." After an hour of exposure that should have killed her instantly, Lisa walked out of the chamber feeling perfectly normal. Blood tests showed that her body had somehow developed complete resistance to radiation poisoning. "How do you feel?" Dr. Nix asked her. "A little warm," Lisa replied with a shrug. "Like I've been sitting in sunlight. Actually, it was kind of pleasant." The third test subject was David Chen, a pilot who had never shown any particular intelligence or special abilities. He was given a mathematical problem so complex that the station's supercomputers would need several hours to solve it. The twist was that his life support system was connected to the solution. He had to solve it correctly, or die. Subject 3 has 30 minutes of air remaining, Dr. Nix announced. The equation controls his oxygen supply. Only the correct answer will restore life support. David stared at the impossible mathematical formula displayed on the screen in his chamber, numbers and symbols that would challenge the greatest minds in the galaxy. He had never seen anything like it before. As his oxygen levels dropped and the chamber grew hot and stuffy, something extraordinary happened. David's eyes suddenly became focused and clear. His hands began moving across the input pad, entering numbers with complete confidence. "What is he doing?" Dr. Zix asked. "There's no way he can understand that equation." But David continued to work, his fingers flying over the controls. With only 2 minutes of air remaining, he entered his final answer. The life support system, immediately activated. Fresh, cool air flooded the chamber. "Check his solution," Dr. Vell ordered. The computers confirmed it. David had solved a level 10 quantum physics problem, that should have been impossible for any individual to complete without massive computational assistance. When asked how he had done it, David looked just as surprised as everyone else. "I don't know," he said honestly. "The numbers just made sense. Like someone was telling me what to write down." Dr. Elena Brooks had been moved to the same station for her own testing. As a scientist herself, she was given a different type of experiment. She was placed in a room with 12 other humans and given a series of impossible survival scenarios. "Group Test Alpha," Dr. Nix announced. "Subjects are trapped in a sealed environment with limited resources. They have been given enough food and water for 3 days. The test will continue for 2 weeks." Elena looked around at her fellow test subjects. There was Tom Miller, the traitor she recognized from the detention facility. Steve Johnson, the former military officer. Martha, the older woman who talked about guardian angels. And 9 others she had never met before. "Well," said Tom, trying to stay positive, "I guess we better make these supplies last." But something amazing happened over the following days. The food never seemed to run out. Every time they checked their supplies, there was always just enough for another meal. The water containers refilled themselves overnight. When someone got sick, they recovered unusually quickly. "This is impossible," Elena told the group on the 7th day. "We should have run out of food days ago." Martha smiled knowingly. "Maybe we're being taken care of." "By who?" Steve asked. "By us," Elena replied, beginning to understand. "By what we are." The alien scientists watching the group were documenting everything. Food appearing from nothing, water generating spontaneously, illnesses healing without medical treatment. The laws of physics were being casually ignored. Their survival probability was calculated at 0%, Dr. Vell reported to the Galactic Council via secure transmission, yet they continue to thrive. The group dynamic appears to amplify their reality-altering abilities exponentially. But the most terrifying discovery came during the final group test. 24 humans were placed in a chamber designed to be completely impossible to escape from. Solid walls, no doors, no windows, no tools of any kind. "Escape test prime," Dr. Nix announced. "The chamber is sealed with quantum locks that cannot be broken by any known technology. There is no possible way out." The humans were left alone for 6 hours. When the scientists returned to check on them, they found an empty chamber. All 24 humans had vanished. "Where are they?" Dr. Nix demanded, checking every scanner and sensor in the facility. "Sir," came a panicked voice over the intercom. "They're in the cafeteria, having lunch." The security footage showed the impossible truth. The humans had simply walked through solid walls as if they weren't there, not breaking them, not melting them, not finding secret passages. Just stepping through matter like it was empty space. When questioned about how they had escaped, the humans gave answers that chilled the alien scientists to their cores. "The wall felt thin," said one. "I just pushed and it gave way," said another. "We really wanted to get out, so we did," explained a third. Dr. Elena Brooks was the most articulate in her explanation. "We didn't escape the chamber. We convinced reality that we were never trapped in the first place." Dr. Vell was putting together his final report on the experiments. The data was so disturbing that he had to read it 3 times to make sure he wasn't making mistakes. "Council members," he wrote, "humans do not simply bend the laws of physics, they rewrite them on demand. Their consciousness exists partially outside normal space-time, allowing them to access quantum fields that control the fundamental structure of reality." He included video footage of the tests, knowing that the council would hardly believe the written reports alone. The effect strengthens dramatically when humans work together toward a common survival goal. A single human can alter local probability. A group of humans can apparently alter the basic laws of matter and energy. Dr. Nix added his own observations to the report. Most disturbing of all, the humans are completely unaware of what they're doing. They don't know they're manipulating reality. To them, it feels natural and normal. They're unconsciously reshaping the universe around them with every breath. The experiments had answered the Galactic Council's questions, but the answers were more terrifying than anyone had imagined. Humans weren't just dangerous because they could survive impossible situations. They were dangerous because they could make impossible situations become possible. In her holding cell, Elena Brooks stared out at the stars and finally understood what her species had become. They weren't passengers in reality. They were reality's co-pilots, and they were just beginning to learn how to fly. The question now was whether the galaxy could survive humanity's flight lessons, or whether humanity would accidentally crash the entire universe while learning to control their incredible unconscious power. Dr. Vell transmitted his report to the Galactic Council with a single, final warning. We are no longer studying a dangerous species. We are studying the birth of gods who don't yet know their own power. The news of the experiment spread like wildfire through the secret networks of free humans scattered across the galaxy. What the Galactic Council had intended as research had become something much more dangerous, proof that humanity was far more powerful than anyone had imagined. Captain James Wright stood in the hidden asteroid base that had become the headquarters of the human resistance. Around him, holographic displays showed the locations of captured humans throughout galactic space. Thousands of his people were being held in detention facilities, research stations, and prison ships. They're not just studying us, James told the assembled group of resistance leaders. They're torturing us to understand what we can do. Commander Lisa Park, who had escaped from Europa Station during a convenient system malfunction, stepped forward. The reports from Omega 7 are worse than we thought. They're testing humans to destruction, trying to find our limits. And what did they find? Asked Tom Miller, who had broken out of his transport ship when all the locks mysteriously failed at the same time. That we don't have limits, Lisa replied grimly. At least not the kind they understand. The resistance had grown from a few, scattered groups into a coordinated network of ships, bases, and sympathizers. They called themselves the Prometheus Fleet, bringing fire to the gods who thought they could cage humanity. But the strangest thing about their rebellion was how successful it was becoming. Despite having inferior numbers and technology, every mission they attempted seemed to succeed through impossible coincidences. Steve Johnson was reporting on their latest rescue operation. We hit the prison transport detention yesterday. Our intel said it was heavily guarded by 12 warships. And? James prompted. 8 of the guard ships suffered engine failures just as we arrived. The other 4 had targeting computer malfunctions that made them shoot at empty space instead of us. We rescued all 47 humans without firing a single shot. Martha, the older woman who had become something of a spiritual advisor to the group, spoke up quietly. It's happening more often now. The universe is helping us. The universe doesn't take sides, Martha, said Rick, a young engineer who specialized in breaking alien computer systems. Doesn't it? Martha replied. Every time we need something, it appears. Every time we're in danger, our enemy's weapons malfunction. Every time we're trapped, doors open by themselves. Either we're the luckiest people in galactic history, or something bigger is going on. Dr. Elena Brooks had recently escaped from Research Station Omega 7 in what the aliens were calling an impossible security breach. She had simply walked out through 7 locked doors, past dozens of guards, and onto a shuttle that happened to be leaving at exactly the right moment. I've been thinking about what happened during the experiments, Elena told the group. The aliens kept saying we were altering reality. But what if we're not changing anything? What if reality was always like this, and we're just the first species that knows how to work with it instead of against it? Captain James Wright nodded thoughtfully. You mean we're not breaking the laws of physics? We're using laws that other species never discovered? Exactly, Elena replied. Every species in the galaxy thinks the universe is fixed and unchangeable. But what if it's actually fluid, responsive, alive? What if consciousness and reality are partners, not opponents? Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from their scouts. Admiral Kate Morgan, who had broken out of Luna Station with several classified files, appeared on the main screen. James, we have a problem, Kate reported from her ship. The Galactic Fleet is mobilizing. They're not just trying to contain us anymore. They're planning to destroy every human settlement in the galaxy. The room fell silent. This was what they had all feared, that the aliens would decide humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to exist. "How long do we have?" James asked. "Fleet Admiral Rax is leading a force of over 2,000 ships. They'll reach the Sol system in 6 days. Earth, home to 8 billion humans who had no idea their entire species had been classified as weapons of mass destruction. We have to warn them," Lisa said. "We have to help them evacuate." "Evacuate to where?" Tom asked. "The aliens control every habitable planet in the galaxy. Earth is the only home we have left." Steve Johnson stepped forward with a grim expression. "Then we fight." "Fight?" Rick laughed bitterly. "We have maybe 50 ships total. They have 2,000. How exactly do we fight that?" It was Martha who answered, her voice calm and certain. "The same way we've been fighting all along. We let the universe help us." Admiral Kate Morgan was analyzing the enemy fleet movements when something strange started happening to her instruments. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered, running diagnostics on her scanner systems. Her first officer, a human named Paul, looked over her shoulder. "What's wrong?" "The galactic fleet is reporting massive system failures. Engine problems, navigation errors, communication breakdowns. It's like their entire technology base is falling apart." On the flagship of the galactic fleet, Admiral Rax was dealing with exactly those problems. His impressive armada was supposed to be the most advanced military force in galactic history. Instead, it was becoming a floating disaster. "Sir, the Vengeance reports complete engine failure," his communications officer announced. "The Retribution has lost all navigation systems. The Domination is requesting emergency assistance after their weapons exploded in their own launch tubes." "How many ships are still operational?" Rax demanded. "Approximately half, sir, and the number is dropping every hour." Rax stared at the tactical display in horror. Ship after ship was going dark or reporting critical malfunctions. It was as if the fleet was being sabotaged from within. "Could the humans have infiltrated our system somehow?" he asked his tactical officer. "Impossible, sir. Our security is absolute. Besides, the failures are random and different on every ship. No saboteur could cause this kind of chaos." What Admiral Rax didn't know was that every human in the Resistance was unconsciously focusing on the same desperate wish, that the fleet attacking their home would fail, and reality was listening. Meanwhile, the rescue operations were accelerating, beyond all logical possibility. Human ships that should have been easily captured were slipping through alien security like ghosts. Prison transports suffered convenient accidents that allowed their human prisoners to escape. Research stations experienced computer glitches that opened all the doors at once. Commander Robert Hayes was leading one of these rescue missions. His small ship had just extracted 30 humans from a maximum security facility on Titan Station. "How did we do it?" asked one of the rescued prisoners as they escaped into hyperspace. "We didn't do anything special," Robert replied honestly. "The guards were all called away for an emergency drill that apparently never existed. The computer systems crashed just as we arrived. The hangar doors opened by themselves when we needed to leave." Another rescued human, a scientist named Dr. Williams, was studying the scanner readings. "The statistical probability of all those things happening at exactly the right time is essentially zero. Then maybe probability isn't as fixed as we thought," Robert suggested. Back at the Resistance headquarters, Dr. Elena Brooks was making a disturbing discovery. She had been analyzing the pattern of their successes and the aliens' failures. "The effect is accelerating," she announced to the Leadership Council. "Every day, reality seems more responsive to human will. It's like our unconscious influence on the universe is growing stronger." "Is that good or bad?" James asked. "I don't know," Elena admitted. "But I think we're approaching some kind of tipping point. The question is, what happens when an entire species learns it can reshape reality just by wanting something badly enough?" The answer came sooner than anyone expected. News reports started flooding in from across the galaxy about impossible events happening wherever humans were present. On the mining world of Kepler 186f, human workers trapped in a mine collapse had somehow caused new tunnels to appear that led directly to the surface, On the research station orbiting Proxima Centauri, human scientists working on an unsolvable energy crisis had suddenly discovered that their experimental reactor was producing power levels that violated the laws of thermodynamics. On the colony ship New Horizons, human families facing starvation, when their food recyclers failed, had found their storage bays mysteriously refilled with fresh supplies. "It's happening everywhere," Kate reported to the Resistance leadership. "Every human in the galaxy is unconsciously altering reality to solve their problems. And the aliens are starting to panic," James added, reading intelligence reports from their spy networks. "Half the Galactic Council wants to negotiate with us. The other half wants to eliminate us before we accidentally destroy the universe." Dr. Elena Brooks looked up from her research with an expression of wonder and terror. What if they're both right? What if we're becoming something so powerful that we could save the galaxy or destroy it? The Galactic Fleet was now reporting that over 70% of their ships were unable to continue the mission due to mechanical failures. Admiral Rax was facing the most humiliating defeat in military history, not by enemy action, but by the apparent rebellion of his own technology. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "I'm receiving reports that human ships are appearing throughout our formation. They're not attacking, they're just there, sitting in the middle of our fleet like they belong." "That's impossible," Rax replied. "Our sensors would have detected them approaching." "Sir, according to our logs, they didn't approach. They just appeared, as if they were always there and we just now noticed them." Admiral Rax realized with growing horror that he wasn't just fighting an enemy fleet. He was fighting an enemy that could apparently edit themselves into existence wherever they wanted to be. The war between humanity and the galaxy had taken a turn that no military strategist had ever imagined. The humans weren't winning through superior tactics or technology. They were winning because reality itself had apparently chosen sides. And the most terrifying part was that the humans still didn't seem to realize they were doing it. The moment of truth had arrived. The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from every species in known space, but all eyes were focused on the human woman standing at the center podium. Dr. Elena Brooks had requested permission to address the council directly, and after weeks of debate, they had finally agreed. Behind her, Captain James Wright stood with a delegation of human representatives. Around them, the chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Half the galaxy wanted to destroy humanity before they became too powerful. The other half was beginning to wonder if humanity might be the key to understanding the universe itself. "Honored council members," Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "You fear us because we are different. You have classified us as dangerous vessels, weapons of reality manipulation, threats to the natural order. But you are wrong about one thing. We are not here to destroy your reality. We are here to show you that reality was never as fixed as you believed." Ambassador Thek shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Dr. Brooks, your species has demonstrated the ability to alter the fundamental laws of physics at will. How can you claim this is not dangerous?" "Because," Elena replied, "the laws of physics were never meant to be prisons. They were meant to be tools. Every species in this galaxy has spent millions of years accepting that the universe is unchangeable. But what if you were wrong? What if consciousness and reality were always meant to work together?" Dr. Vell, the Vorthon physicist who had studied human brain patterns, stood up slowly. "Dr. Brooks, are you suggesting that other species could learn to do what humans do naturally?" "I'm suggesting something far more wonderful than that," Elena said with a smile. "I'm suggesting that you're already doing it. You just don't know how to recognize it." She gestured to the massive holographic display that appeared above the chamber, showing brain scans from dozens of different species. "Dr. Vell, your own research shows quantum fluctuations in non-human consciousness. Dr. Nix, your studies of probability in alien societies show statistical anomalies that mirror human luck patterns. The difference isn't that humans can manipulate reality. The difference is that humans don't fight it." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Every species in this galaxy has been taught that the universe is separate from consciousness, Elena continued. You build machines to overcome physical limitations. You create technology to force reality to bend to your will. But humans learn to work with reality instead of against it. We don't force change. We invite it. Captain James, Wright stepped forward. Council members, we didn't come here to threaten you. We came here to share something that could change everything for all of us. Share what? Demanded Admiral Rax, who had been forced to retreat with the remnants of his fleet. Evolution, James replied simply. Not just biological evolution, but consciousness evolution. The next step that every species can take. Dr. Elena Brooks activated another display, this one showing the recent events across the galaxy. Look at what's been happening since our classification as dangerous vessels. Reality has become more responsive everywhere, not just around humans. The universe itself is waking up. The evidence was undeniable. Alien scientists had been reporting impossible breakthroughs in their research. Engineers were solving problems that had stumped them for decades. Even the Council's own chambers had been experiencing beneficial malfunctions that improved their efficiency. The quantum fields that humans access naturally are available to everyone, Elena explained. We're not special. We're just the first species to accidentally discover that consciousness and reality are partners in creation, not opponents. Dr. Vell examined the data flowing across his personal scanner. The readings are extraordinary. It appears that human presence has been gradually increasing the quantum responsiveness of local space everywhere they go. You're making the universe more alive, Elena said to the alien scientists, more responsive to conscious intent, more willing to work with awareness instead of against it. Ambassador Thek raised all four of his arms. Dr. Brooks, even if what you say is true, how do we know this won't lead to chaos? If every species gains the ability to alter reality, won't that destroy the stability of existence itself? It was Martha, the older human woman who had become something of a spiritual guide to the resistance, who answered this question. Honored Ambassador, she said, stepping forward with a gentle smile. Have you ever seen a human child learn to walk? Thek looked confused. I do not understand the relevance. At first, the child falls down constantly, Martha explained. They seem clumsy and dangerous to themselves, but eventually they learn balance. They learn to work with gravity instead of fighting it. Walking becomes natural, automatic, safe. You're saying that humanity is learning to walk in a larger sense, Dr. Nix observed thoughtfully. I'm saying that all consciousness is learning to walk, Martha replied. Humans are just a little further along in the process. But like any child, learning to walk, we need others to help us stay balanced. The demonstration that followed changed everything. Elena had arranged for humans throughout the galaxy to focus their thoughts on a single, simple goal at exactly the same moment. Not to harm or destroy, but to create something beautiful for everyone to share. As the appointed time arrived, something extraordinary began happening throughout the Galactic Council chambers. Flowers began growing from the metal walls, not earth flowers, but blossoms that reflected the aesthetic preferences of every species present. The air filled with music that somehow sounded like each species' favorite melodies played simultaneously, yet in perfect harmony. The artificial gravity systems, which had always been slightly uncomfortable for species with different evolutionary backgrounds, suddenly adjusted themselves to be perfectly comfortable for everyone present. The lighting shifted to optimal levels for all types of vision. Even the temperature became perfectly pleasant for every biological type in the chamber. This is impossible, Dr. Vell whispered, but his voice carried wonder instead of fear. No, Elena said softly. This is what's possible when consciousness works together instead of against itself. The changes weren't limited to the council chambers. Reports were flooding in from across the galaxy of similar phenomena, hostile environments becoming more livable, complex problems solving themselves, ancient conflicts suddenly finding peaceful resolutions. The humans aren't dangerous vessels, Dr. Vell announced to the chamber, his voice filled with awe. They're consciousness evolution in action. They're showing us what we can all become. Ambassador Thek was quiet for a long moment, processing everything he had witnessed. When he finally spoke, His voice was thoughtful rather than fearful. If we accept this, if we acknowledge that humans represent a new form of existence, what happens next? Captain James Wright smiled. We learn together. We explore what consciousness can become when it's not limited by fear. We discover what the universe is really capable of when all its children work together instead of fighting each other. And the classification? Asked Dr. Nix. Do humans remain Class 7 dangerous vessels? Elena Brooks looked around the chamber at the impossible beauty that surrounded them. Flowers blooming from metal, music flowing from empty air, technology that had suddenly become perfectly suited to serve all life. Yes, she said finally. But we change what dangerous means. We're dangerous to limitation, dangerous to the belief that consciousness and reality must be enemies, dangerous to the idea that the universe is dead matter instead of living possibility. She paused, then added with a gentle smile, we're vessels, but we're not carrying human consciousness. We're carrying the future of consciousness itself. The vote that followed was unanimous. Humanity would remain classified as Class 7 dangerous vessels, but the meaning of that classification was transformed. They were dangerous only to old ways of thinking that limited what life could become. The new designation read, humans are dangerous vessels carrying the next phase of conscious evolution. All species are invited to learn from and work with them in exploring the partnership between awareness and reality. Dr. Elena Brooks stood in the observation deck of the council station, looking out at the stars. Around her, representatives from dozens of species were having their first lessons in what humans had accidentally discovered, how to invite reality to dance instead of trying to force it to obey. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, from fear and imprisonment to understanding and partnership, from being seen as threats to being welcomed as teachers. The universe was changing, consciousness was evolving, and humanity had become the bridge between what was and what could be. In the distance, Earth shone like a blue jewel among the stars, home to 8 billion dangerous vessels who were about to discover that they had never been alone in their dance with reality. The age of separation between mind and matter was ending. The age of conscious partnership with existence itself was about to begin, and somewhere in the quantum fields that connected all things, the universe itself seemed to smile. The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched far into the distance. Its walls were made of crystal that caught the light from 3 different suns. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in floating chairs that moved without sound. Some had 4 arms, others had tentacles, and a few looked like walking trees. But they all had one thing in common. They thought they ruled the galaxy. Commander Zekthara stood at the center of it all. His blue skin was covered in scars from battles across the stars. 2 of his 4 arms were missing, replaced with metal ones that clicked when he moved. The other aliens whispered as they looked at him. Everyone knew his story. He was the hero of the Rigel War, the soldier who had fought the pirates in the dark between the stars. But today, Zekthara did not look like a hero. His hands shook as he held the speaking device. His eyes darted around the room like he was looking for enemies. The other council members leaned back in their chairs. Some laughed quietly to each other. Honored Council, Zekthara began, his voice rough from years of shouting orders in battle. I come before you today with a warning. A warning about a planet called Earth. More laughter rippled through the hall. Earth was known to the council, but barely. It was a small blue world on the edge of the galaxy. The creatures there had only just learned to travel between stars. They were weak, primitive, and posed no threat to anyone. Commander Zekthara, said High Counselor Vexmari, her voice dripping with amusement. She was a tall, thin creature with purple skin and eyes like black holes. Surely you jest, Earth? The little world with the pink bipeds? They have barely left their own star system. They are called humans, Zekthara said firmly, and they are the most dangerous creatures I have ever encountered. The laughter grew louder. Someone in the back called out, Has the old soldier finally lost his mind? Zekthara's mechanical hands clenched into fists. Listen to me. I have fought beside them. I have seen what they can do. 3 months ago, my ship was damaged in the Sol system while chasing pirates. The humans offered to help. I thought it would be simple. Show them how real soldiers fight, clean up the criminals, and leave. He paused, looking around the room. The laughter had died down, but he could see the doubt in their alien faces. The pirates had taken hostages on a mining station, Zekathara continued. 47 innocent workers trapped inside with 50 armed criminals. My tactical computer said we needed at least 200 soldiers to take the station without losing the hostages. We had 30 soldiers in my unit, and, prompted High Counselor Vexmari, though she sounded bored. The humans sent 12 soldiers. 12! Zekthara's voice rose. I told their commander it was impossible. He just looked at me with those strange blue eyes and said, "We don't leave people behind." Then they attacked. Zekthara began to pace, his metal feet ringing against the crystal floor. I have fought in 67 battles across 20 star systems. I have seen Krill berserkers who feel no pain. I have watched Vorthon shock troops tear through enemy lines. But I have never seen anything like what those 12 humans did. The council chamber had grown quiet. Even the doubters were listening now. They moved through that station like ghosts. They did not use our advanced weapons or our superior technology. They used knives, small guns, and something else. Something I cannot explain. They worked together like they shared one mind. When one was wounded, another took his place without being told. When they needed to go through a door that was certain death, they did not hesitate. Zekthara stopped pacing and faced the council directly. In 23 minutes, all 50 pirates were dead or captured. All 47 hostages were safe. The humans had taken casualties, 3 wounded, 1 killed. When I asked their commander how they did it, he said something that still haunts me. What did he say? Asked Counselor Morthen, a large creature covered in green scales. He said, "Sir, we're human. We don't know how to quit." Some of the council members shifted in their seats. A few exchanged glances. That is just one story, Zekthara continued. But I spent 3 weeks with those humans while my ship was repaired. I learned about their history. They have been fighting wars on their planet for thousands of years. Not small conflicts over resources or territory. Total wars where entire nations fought until one side was completely destroyed. He pulled up a holographic display in the center of the chamber. Images of Earth appeared, cities burning, soldiers charging across fields under enemy fire, massive explosions that lit up the sky. They have a saying, Zekthara said quietly. Never give up, never surrender. But it is more than words to them. It is part of their nature. I watched human soldiers continue fighting with broken bones. I saw them carry wounded comrades for hours through hostile territory. When they were outnumbered 10 to 1, they did not retreat. They found a way to win. Fascinating, said High Counselor Vexmari, though her tone suggested she found it anything but. But surely you exaggerate, Commander. No species is as formidable as you describe. Zekthara's eyes blazed with fury. I am not exaggerating. I am trying to save this council from making the worst mistake in galactic history. You want to add Earth to the hegemony? You want to send the First Fleet to demand their surrender? Those humans will fight you with everything they have. And they will not stop fighting until they are all dead or you are. Commander, interrupted Counselor Drax, whose tentacles writhed with irritation. You speak as though these humans could pose a threat to the galactic hegemony. We have fleets that number in the thousands. We have weapons that can crack planets. They have barely managed to build crude spacecraft. Their technology is not advanced, Zekathara admitted. But that does not matter. Do you know what humans do when their technology fails? They improvise. They use whatever they can find to keep fighting. I watched them turn civilian mining equipment into weapons. I saw them use their own damaged ships as battering rams. He brought up another image, a human soldier standing over the body of a fallen comrade. Surrounded by alien pirates, his weapon broken, blood streaming down his face, but still fighting with a piece of metal he had torn from the wall. They have something we have lost, Zekathara said softly. Something that all our technology and all our power cannot replace. They believe in something greater than themselves. They will die for their families, their friends, their planet. They will sacrifice everything to protect what they love. The council chamber was silent now. Even the most skeptical members were studying the images with new interest. There is something else, Zekthara continued. Something that should terrify you more than their fighting ability. The humans I met, they asked me about other worlds. They wanted to know about species that had been conquered by the hegemony. When I told them about the slave worlds, about the prison planets, about the millions who suffer under our rule, they were angry. Angry? Asked High Counselor Vexmari. Not just angry, furious. They could not understand how we could allow such things to exist. One of their soldiers, a young female, looked at me and asked, "How can you live with yourselves knowing you could stop the suffering but choose not to?" Zekthara's voice dropped to a whisper. I had no answer for her. For the first time in my life, I was ashamed of what we have built. The hegemony rules through fear and force. We take what we want because we are stronger, but the humans, they believe strength should be used to protect the weak, not enslave them. Enough! High Counselor Vexmari stood up, her chair floating higher into the air. This council has heard enough of your fantasies, Commander. Perhaps your injuries have affected your judgment. These humans are primitives who have barely learned to leave their own planet. The idea that they could threaten the galactic hegemony is absurd. You are making a mistake, Zekthara warned. A terrible mistake that will cost us everything. The only mistake, said Counselor Drax, would be listening to the ravings of a broken old soldier. Earth will join the hegemony like every other world. They will surrender when they see our fleet just like all the others. And if they do not surrender? Zekthara asked. High Counselor Vexmari smiled coldly. Then they will be destroyed, quickly and efficiently, as an example to any other worlds that might consider resistance. Zekthara looked around the chamber one last time. He saw the arrogance in their faces, the absolute certainty that they were superior to every other species in the galaxy. He had seen that same look on the faces of the pirates who had underestimated the humans. I have given you my warning, he said finally. When your fleets return in defeat, when your soldiers tell you stories that sound impossible, when the humans come hunting you across the stars, remember this moment. Remember that I tried to tell you the truth. He turned and walked toward the exit, his metal feet echoing in the silent chamber. Commander! Called High Counselor Vexmari. Where are you going? Zekthara stopped but did not turn around. Home to prepare for war, the real war that is coming. There will be no war, she said confidently. The humans will surrender or die. It will be over in days. Zekthara finally turned back to face the council. For the first time since entering the chamber, he smiled. But it was not a pleasant smile. High Counselor, he said quietly, you have no idea what you have just started. The humans have a saying about their wars. This time it's personal. You're about to make it very personal. He left the chamber without another word. Behind him, the council members began debating the details of Earth's conquest. They talked about ship deployments and occupation forces. They discussed how to divide up the planet's resources once the humans were defeated. None of them noticed that Zekthara had left his personal communicator behind, still transmitting to a hidden frequency. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, a human intelligence officer listened to every word they said. The humans would not be surprised when the fleet arrived. They would be ready. And as Zekthara had tried to warn them, a ready human was the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. Admiral Velteron stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory, and felt completely confident. Behind him, through the massive viewing windows, he could see 200 ships of the galactic hegemony's first fleet. Each ship was a masterpiece of alien engineering, armed with weapons that could level cities and protected by shields that had never been broken. Sir, reported his communications officer, a small creature with 6 eyes. We are approaching the Sol system. The target planet Earth is directly ahead. Excellent, Velteron replied. His species, the Vorthak, were natural predators. They had conquered dozens of worlds for the hegemony. This would be no different. Begin standard intimidation protocols. Transmit surrender demands on all frequencies. The communications officer worked at his console for several minutes, then looked up with confusion. Sir, we are receiving responses from the planet, but they are unusual. How so? They are not surrendering, sir. In fact, they appear to be coordinating defensive efforts. Multiple nations on the planet are sharing military data and combining their fleets. Admiral Velteron laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Their fleets? How many ships do they have? Approximately 300 vessels, sir. Most appear to be cargo ships that have been modified with weapons. 300 primitive ships against our fleet? Velteron shook his head in amusement. This will be over before lunch. Helm, take us into orbit. Weapons prepare to fire on their largest cities. Once we destroy a few million of them, the rest will see reason. But as the hegemony fleet moved toward Earth, something unexpected happened. The human ships did not retreat. Instead, they formed a defensive line between the alien fleet and their planet. Their formation was crude but determined. "Sir," called the tactical officer, "the humans are hailing us. Put them through. I want to hear them beg." The main screen flickered to life, showing a middle-aged human male in a military uniform. Behind him, Belteran could see the bridge of what appeared to be a converted cargo vessel. The human looked tired but resolute. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said calmly. "You are in violation of Earth's sovereign space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Belteran burst into laughter. "Face the consequences? Little creature, do you have any idea who you are speaking to? I am Admiral Belteran of the Galactic Hegemony. I command enough firepower to turn your entire planet into cosmic dust." Admiral Chen's expression did not change. "Then you'll have to go through us first. So be it." Belteran cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "Target their lead ships. Fire when ready." The first volley from the hegemony fleet was devastating. 20 human ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The alien weapons were far superior to anything Earth possessed. But instead of retreating, the remaining human ships moved forward. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, his voice uncertain, "the humans are advancing. They appear to be attempting to close the distance." "Let them come," Belteran said. "Our shields will protect us and we can destroy them at our leisure." But the humans were not planning a conventional attack. As they approached the alien fleet, something became clear. They were not trying to win a traditional space battle. They were trying to get close enough to ram. "Warning," called the sensors operator. "Multiple human vessels on collision courses." The first human ship, a converted mining vessel called the Pittsburgh, slammed into the side of a hegemony destroyer. Both ships exploded, but the alien vessel's shields failed first. A second human ship followed immediately, crashing into another destroyer. "What are they doing?" Belteran demanded. "They are destroying themselves." On the human ships, crews made impossible decisions. Captain Maria Santos of the Sao Paulo knew her ship was doomed when alien weapons tore through her engines. Instead of abandoning ship, she ordered her crew to the escape pods and manually piloted her vessel into the bridge of a hegemony cruiser. "This is for my children," she whispered as her ship impacted the aliens had never encountered tactics like these. In civilized warfare, ships retreated when they were damaged. Crews surrendered when defeat was certain. But the humans seemed to view their own ships as weapons to be expended. "Sir," the tactical officer's voice was rising in panic. "The humans are broadcasting something on all frequencies. I think they are saying goodbye to their families." Belteran listened to the intercepted transmissions with growing unease. Human voices speaking in dozens of languages, all saying similar things. "Tell Mom I love her. Take care of the kids for me. See you on the other side. Brother, remember me." These were not the words of soldiers expecting to survive. These were the words of people who had already accepted death. The human ship New York had lost half its hull to alien fire, but its captain, a young woman named Lisa Park, kept fighting. When her weapons failed, she used her ship's construction tools as makeshift cannons, firing mining charges at the enemy. When those ran out, she rammed her crippled vessel into an alien supply ship. "Bridge to all ships," came Admiral Chen's voice over the human fleet frequency. "Remember why we're here. Every minute we hold them, every ship we take down is one less threat to Earth. Make them pay for every meter." The battle was unlike anything in the hegemony's military history. Human ships with no chance of victory continued fighting until they were nothing but debris. Crews that should have surrendered instead found new ways to damage their enemies. One human freighter, completely unarmed, used its cargo hold full of asteroids as ammunition, firing rocks at alien ships until its hull breached. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "we have lost 37 ships." Belteran stared at him in disbelief. 37? Against these primitives? "The humans appear to be using unconventional tactics, sir. They are treating their ships as expendable weapons. Our crews are not prepared for opponents who actively seek to die in combat." On the bridge of the Eternal Glory, alarms began sounding. A badly damaged human destroyer had broken through the alien defensive line and was heading straight for the flagship. "Shields up," Belteran ordered. "Destroy that ship." But the human destroyer, commanded by Captain James Mitchell, had already planned for this moment. His ship was dead in space, engines destroyed, life support failing. His crew had evacuated, but he remained at the helm. "This is for everyone who won't make it home," he said quietly, then pushed his ship's reactor into overload. The explosion when the Brisbane hit the eternal glory was visible from Earth. The flagship's shields held, but barely. The impact sent shockwaves through the alien fleet. "Status report," Veltaran demanded. "Shields at 15%, sir. Hull damage on decks 7 through 12. The humans, sir, they are still coming." What remained of the human fleet, now less than 50 ships, continued their advance. They moved with the determination of a species that would rather die fighting than live in chains. But it was not just their willingness to die that shook the alien crews. It was how they died. Human ships would explode, and seconds later, the aliens would detect escape pods launching toward Earth. The humans were saving every crew member they could, even while sacrificing their ships. Captain Ana Rodriguez of the Mexico City had her entire crew in escape pods, but she stayed behind to manually aim her ship at an alien cruiser. As her vessel broke apart around her, she transmitted one final message: for Earth, for humanity, for the future. The aliens began to understand that they were not fighting soldiers. They were fighting an entire species that had decided death was preferable to surrender. "Sir," the communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving transmissions from Earth. The planet's population is... They are sending messages to their fleet." "What kind of messages?" "Encouragement, sir. The entire planet is watching the battle. They are telling their soldiers they are proud of them, that they love them, that they will not forget their sacrifice." On screens throughout the alien fleet, humans could be seen gathering in public spaces on Earth, watching the battle unfold. They were not panicking or fleeing. They were singing. Songs of courage, songs of defiance, songs of hope. One transmission caught Veltaran's attention. It was from a young human child, maybe 8 years old, speaking into a communication device. "Daddy, I know you can hear me. Thank you for protecting us. I'm not scared anymore because I know you won't let the bad guys win. I love you." For the first time in his military career, Admiral Veltaran felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. "Sir," called the tactical officer urgently. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive movement throughout human space. Ships are launching from every planet, every station, every asteroid base they have." "More ships?" "Hundreds of them, sir. But these are not military vessels. They appear to be civilian craft, cargo ships, passenger liners, even personal spacecraft. They are all heading toward Earth." Veltaran stared at the sensor readings. An entire species was mobilizing for war. Not just their military, but everyone. Farmers were flying grain haulers toward the battle. Students were piloting school ships. Retirees were coming out of space stations in vessels that had not flown in decades. "They are all transmitting the same message," the communications officer reported. "What message?" "We are coming, that's all. Just we are coming." The battle around Earth continued for 6 more hours. By the end, the human fleet was completely destroyed. Every ship had been reduced to wreckage, but the cost to the hegemony was staggering. They had lost 63 ships, with 40 more severely damaged. Thousands of alien crew members were dead, and Earth was still there, still defiant. "Sir," the tactical officer said quietly, "recommend we withdraw to reassess the situation." Veltaran wanted to refuse, wanted to order the bombardment of Earth's cities, but he looked at his fleet scattered and bloodied, and realized the truth that Zekthara had tried to warn the Council about. The humans had lost every ship, but they had won the battle. They had shown the galaxy that the hegemony could bleed. "Begin retreat," he ordered quietly. As the alien fleet limped away from Earth, they left behind a field of debris that stretched for thousands of kilometers. But among the wreckage of human ships, something else floated in the darkness. Thousands of escape pods carrying the survivors back to Earth. The humans had lost their fleet, but they had saved their people. And as the pods were recovered, as the survivors were welcomed home as heroes, as the entire planet prepared for the next attack, one thing became clear: this was not over. This was just the beginning. Back on Earth, Admiral Chen stood in the ruins of Earth's orbital command center looking at the casualty reports. 90% of Earth's space fleet was gone, but when asked by a reporter if he thought the battle was worth it, his answer was simple. "We sent a message today. We told the galaxy that humanity doesn't surrender, that we protect our own, that if you want to take our freedom, you'll have to earn it with blood. He paused, looking up at the stars where alien ships had fled. And next time, he said quietly, we'll be ready for them. In the depths of space, Admiral Veltarin composed his report to the Galactic Council. But he struggled with how to explain what he had witnessed. How do you tell your superiors that you had been defeated by an enemy that welcomed death? How do you describe tactics that no civilized species would use? In the end, he wrote just 4 words that would change the course of galactic history. Recommend immediate reinforcement. 6 months after the first battle, the Second Fleet arrived at Earth. Admiral Veltarin had been relieved of command for his failure and replaced by Admiral HFY, a ruthless strategist from the core worlds. This time, the hegemony was taking no chances. 800 ships surrounded the Sol system in a formation designed to crush any resistance. Signal the planet, Admiral HFY ordered from his command ship, the Galactic Dominion. Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. The response came back within minutes. It was not from Admiral Chen or any military leader. Instead, it was from an elderly human woman sitting at a simple desk. This is Secretary General Williams of the United Earth Government, she said calmly. We have discussed your demands and reached a unanimous decision. Our answer is no. Admiral HFY, a massive creature with armored skin and multiple heads, growled in frustration. You see the size of our fleet, human. You have no ships left to defend yourselves. Surrender now and your species will be allowed to live as servants of the hegemony. Secretary General Williams smiled sadly. Admiral, I think you misunderstand something fundamental about humanity. We would rather die free than live as slaves. That has always been our way. Then you will die, HFY snarled. We will blockade your system. We will destroy any ship that tries to leave. We will bomb your cities until you beg for mercy. Do what you must, Williams replied. We will do what we must. The siege began immediately. Alien ships took positions throughout the solar system, cutting off all trade routes and supply lines. Any human vessel that attempted to leave was destroyed without warning. The bombardment of Earth's major cities commenced, targeting military installations and industrial centers. But something strange happened. Instead of breaking human resistance, the attack seemed to make them stronger. In the ruins of New York, construction crews worked around the clock to build new defenses. In London, factory workers converted subway tunnels into weapon manufacturing facilities. In Tokyo, students and teachers worked together to create underground communication networks that the aliens could not detect. Sir, reported Commander Thexel, HFY's intelligence officer, the humans are not responding as expected to the bombardment. Explain. Rather than seeking shelter or fleeing, they appear to be organizing. Each attack on their cities results in more coordinated resistance efforts. They are sharing resources, combining military units, and, sir, they are launching attacks. HFY's middle head turned to stare at him. Attacks with what? They have no fleet. They are using civilian spacecraft, sir. Modified cargo haulers, racing ships, even personal transport pods. They launch from hidden bases and attack our patrol ships before retreating to Earth's atmosphere. The human resistance was indeed unlike anything the hegemony had faced. Small groups of volunteers would take old mining ships and convert them into guided missiles. They would fill cargo containers with explosives and pilot them into alien vessels. Most attacks resulted in the complete destruction of the human craft, but they inflicted damage far beyond what should have been possible. Captain Sarah Kim piloted a converted ambulance ship on what she knew was a suicide mission. Her target was an alien supply convoy headed for the blockade fleet. She had enough fuel for a one-way trip and carried enough explosives to crack a small moon. This is Mercy Flight to Earth Control, she transmitted as she approached the enemy ships. Beginning final approach. Tell my family I love them. Her ship screamed through space toward the largest alien cargo vessel. Enemy fighters moved to intercept, but she had planned for this. At the last moment, she ejected every piece of medical equipment from her ship's cargo bay, creating a cloud of debris that confused the alien sensors. The explosion when she hit the supply ship lit up half the solar system, but the suicide attacks were only part of humanity's strategy. What truly worried the alien command was something else entirely. The broadcasts. Every human attack was transmitted live across the galaxy. The aliens tried to jam the signals, but the humans had hidden transmitters throughout their solar system. Each act of defiance, each impossible victory, Each sacrifice was beamed to every corner of hegemony space. On the slave world of Kepler 442b, alien overseers watched in amazement as their subjects gathered around hidden communication devices, listening to stories from Earth. The downtrodden workers heard about humans who fought back against impossible odds. They learned about people who chose death over slavery. "Sir," reported Commander Thexall during a strategy meeting, "we are detecting unusual activity on 17 different worlds within our territory." "What kind of activity?" "Work slowdown, sir. Acts of sabotage. On Vega Prime, the mining operations have decreased by 30%. On Altair 4, the weapon factories are reporting equipment failures daily. It appears that news of human resistance is inspiring rebellion among our subject species." Admiral Kexvor slammed a massive fist on the command table. "Impossible. These species have been pacified for centuries. They know the penalty for rebellion, yes sir. But the humans seem to be broadcasting instructions along with their battle reports. They are teaching other species how to make weapons from industrial equipment, how to organize resistance cells, how to disrupt hegemony operations without being detected." The truth was even worse than the Admiral realized. The humans were not just fighting for their own freedom. They were trying to free the entire galaxy. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a former teacher who had become one of Earth's top resistance coordinators, worked from a hidden bunker beneath the ruins of Mexico City. Her job was not to build weapons or plan attacks. Her job was to teach. "Remember," she said into her transmitter, speaking to hidden receivers across dozens of worlds, "the hegemony's strength comes from your fear. They rule because you believe they cannot be defeated. But look at us. We are primitive by their standards and we are making them bleed." Her lessons were simple but effective. How to recognize which alien equipment could be converted into explosives, how to organize without leaving communication traces, how to share information without being detected. Most importantly, how to believe that freedom was possible. On the prison world of Proxima 7, a creature called Velnath listened to the human broadcasts in the darkness of his cell. His people had been enslaved for 300 years. He had never imagined that the hegemony could be resisted. But now he heard stories of humans who faced death with songs on their lips. He learned about people who protected strangers as fiercely as their own families. He discovered that somewhere in the galaxy, there were beings who believed that all creatures deserved to be free. Velnath began to plan. Back in the Sol system, the siege continued. The alien bombardment had reduced most of Earth's major cities to rubble, but the humans adapted. They moved underground, building vast tunnel networks that connected continents. They created mobile factories that could be assembled and disassembled within hours. They turned every asteroid, every piece of space debris, every abandoned satellite into a potential weapon. "Sir," Commander Thexall reported, "the humans have launched another wave of attacks. This time they are using rocks." "Rocks?" "Asteroids, sir. They have attached small engines to them and are guiding them toward our ships. The projectiles are too small for our weapons to target effectively, but they carry enough kinetic energy to damage our hulls." Admiral Kexvor watched the tactical display in disbelief. Hundreds of small asteroids were moving through space toward his fleet, each one piloted by a human volunteer. His ship's point defense systems could stop most of them, but not all. The human strategy was simple. If you cannot build advanced weapons, use the universe itself as ammunition. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the cockpit of his modified asteroid, a chunk of rock barely large enough to hold a pilot and guidance system. He had volunteered for this mission because his daughter was sick, and the alien blockade was preventing medical supplies from reaching Earth. "Tower control, this is Rockhopper 7, he transmitted. "I have visual on target. Beginning final approach." His asteroid slammed into the side of an alien destroyer at 17,000 kilometers per hour. The ship's hull cracked like an eggshell. But the most disturbing development for the hegemony was not the attacks themselves. It was how other species were responding to them. On Tau Ceti 3, the local governor was assassinated by his own security chief, who then broadcast a message calling for freedom. On Wolf 359, the entire population of a factory world went on strike simultaneously. On Barnard Star, alien supply convoys began disappearing without explanation. The rebellion was spreading. "Admiral," Commander Thexall said quietly during their daily briefing, "I must report that we have lost contact with 14 different worlds in the past month. Not destroyed, sir. Lost contact. The local governments have stopped responding to our transmissions. Send investigation fleets, Kexvor ordered. We tried, sir. The investigation fleets have also stopped reporting in. For the first time since taking command, Admiral Kexvor felt fear. The humans had been under siege for 8 months. Their planet was scarred, their cities destroyed, their military completely eliminated. By every measure of civilized warfare, they should have surrendered. Instead, they had somehow turned their defeat into a galaxy-wide revolution. Sir, the communications officer called out urgently, we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They are ordering us to end the siege and return to core space immediately. What? Why? Apparently, sir, there are rebellions breaking out on over 50 worlds. The Council needs the Second Fleet to restore order. Admiral Kexvor stared at the tactical display showing Earth, scarred and burning but still defiant. He realized that Zekthara had been right. The humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy, not because of their technology or their weapons, but because of their ideas. They had taught the galaxy that freedom was worth fighting for. As the Second Fleet began its withdrawal from the Sol system, every human on Earth watched from their underground shelters and hidden bases. They had lost millions of people. Their planet was damaged beyond recognition. But they had won something more valuable than victory. They had given hope to an entire galaxy. Secretary General Williams stood in what had once been the United Nations building, now just a crater in the ground. But her message was broadcast from hidden transmitters to every corner of space. To our friends among the stars, to all those who suffer under the boot of oppression, hear this. Earth stands. Humanity endures. We have shown that the hegemony can be resisted. Now it is time to show them that they can be defeated. She paused, looking up at the stars where alien ships were retreating. The siege is over, she said quietly. The war has just begun. In his prison cell on the core world of Rigel Prime, Commander Zekthara smiled as he listened to the reports. The Council had labeled him a traitor for refusing to participate in the siege. They had stripped him of his rank and thrown him into their most secure facility. But through the walls of his cell he could hear other prisoners talking. Species from across the galaxy, all inspired by stories from a small blue world on the edge of space. They were planning. They were organizing. They were learning to be human. The galaxy would never be the same. 8 months after the siege ended, the first reports reached Hegemony High Command. A supply convoy near the Vega system had simply vanished. Not destroyed, vanished. The ships were there one moment, gone the next, leaving only empty space and confused long-range sensors. Admiral Torvik, the new Supreme Fleet Commander, dismissed the reports as exaggeration. Supply convoys were vulnerable to pirates and rebels. It was unfortunate but not unusual. Then it happened again. And again. Sir, reported his aide, a nervous creature with too many eyes. We have now lost 17 convoys in the past month. In each case, the ships disappeared without sending distress signals. Increased rebel activity, Torvik said dismissively. Double the escort fleets. But doubling the escorts did not help. If anything, it made the problem worse. Now entire battle groups were disappearing. The truth was something the hegemony could not have imagined. The humans had not been idle during the siege. While their planet burned, their best minds had been studying every piece of alien technology they could find. Every crashed ship, every captured weapon. Every fragment of debris had been analyzed and reverse-engineered. Captain Lisa Park, who had survived the first battle by escaping in a damaged pod, now stood on the bridge of the Defiance, humanity's first starship built with alien technology. Around her, a crew of volunteers worked at stations that combined human ingenuity with hegemony engineering. Target acquired, reported her tactical officer, a former mining engineer named Marcus Chen. Alien convoy, 12 ships, minimal escort. Any sign they've detected us? Lisa asked, negative. The stealth modifications are working perfectly. The humans had learned something important during the siege. The hegemony's technology was advanced, but it was also predictable. Their sensors looked for specific energy signatures. Their weapons targeted known threat profiles. Their shields were calibrated against conventional attacks, but humans were not conventional. Begin the rescue operation, Lisa ordered. The Defiance moved silently through space toward the alien convoy. Its hull was coated with adaptive camouflage developed from mining equipment, used to hide from dangerous asteroids. Its engines used a modified design that scattered their emissions to look like background radiation. The alien convoy never saw them coming. This is Captain Park of the Human Liberation Fleet. Lisa broadcast on all frequencies as her ship appeared directly among the convoy vessels. We are here to free the slaves you carry. Surrender your ships and you will not be harmed. The alien convoy commander, a Vorthak named Sultan, laughed at the transmission. One primitive ship against my entire convoy? You must be insane. No, Lisa replied calmly. We're human. What happened next would be reported across the galaxy as the Vega miracle. The single human ship somehow disabled the entire convoy without destroying a single vessel. The alien crews were placed in escape pods and given enough supplies to reach the nearest hegemony world. The slaves were freed and offered passage to any world they chose. But most shocking of all, the human ship had vanished again, leaving behind only a message. Freedom is not negotiable. We are coming for all of them. The rescue at Vega was just the beginning. Human ships began appearing throughout hegemony space, always where they were least expected. They freed slave convoys, liberated prison worlds, and rescued populations from forced labor camps. The aliens could not understand how the humans were doing it. Their intelligence networks detected no massive fleet movements. Their sensors found no evidence of a human invasion force. Yet somehow human ships kept appearing in places they should not be able to reach. The answer was simple. The humans were not mounting an invasion. They were mounting a liberation. Commander Sarah Kim, who had survived her kamikaze attack by ejecting at the last moment, now led a small fleet of converted civilian ships through the Outer Rim territories. Her mission was not to conquer worlds, but to free them. Remember, she told her crew as they approached the prison world of Kepler 438b, we are not here to replace the hegemony. We are here to give these people the chance to free themselves. The prison world held over 2 million beings from dozens of different species, all condemned to forced labor in the uranium mines. It was guarded by a small fleet and considered impregnable. Sarah's solution was typically human. She did not attack the guards. Instead, she landed her ships in the middle of the prison complex and began distributing weapons to the prisoners. This is Commander Kim of the Human Liberation Fleet, she broadcast to every communication device on the planet. We have weapons, supplies, and transport for anyone who wants to fight for their freedom. The choice is yours. The response was overwhelming. Within hours, the entire prison population had risen in revolt. Guards who had brutalized the prisoners for years suddenly found themselves outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The Orbital Defense Fleet tried to intervene, but they faced a problem no military manual had ever addressed. How do you bomb a rebellion when the rebels include representatives from your own subject species? By the time hegemony reinforcements arrived, Kepler 438b was free. The humans had left behind weapons, communication equipment, and detailed instructions on how to maintain their independence. Most importantly, they had left behind hope. Sir, reported Admiral Torvek's intelligence chief, we need to discuss the human situation. It is far more serious than we initially believed. How so? They are not trying to conquer territory, sir. They are trying to inspire rebellion. Every world they visit becomes a center of resistance. The freed slaves do not simply disappear. They join the human cause. We estimate that the Liberation Fleet has grown from a few dozen ships to over 3,000. Admiral Torvek studied the tactical display showing human activity throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked freed worlds, yellow indicated active rebellions, and green showed planets still under hegemony control. There was far too much red and yellow. How are they recruiting so many ships? Where are they getting their crews? That is the most disturbing part, sir. The crews are not all human. Every species they liberate provides volunteers for their fleet. They have created a truly galactic alliance united by a single principle: the rejection of slavery. The truth was even more concerning than the Admiral realized. The Human Liberation Fleet had become something unprecedented in galactic history. A military force with no central government, no territory to defend, and no goal other than freedom for all sentient beings. Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had spent the siege teaching resistance techniques, now traveled from world to world in a converted hospital ship. But instead of treating injuries, she treated something far more dangerous: despair. You have been slaves for so long that you have forgotten what freedom feels like. she told a gathering of liberated miners on Proxima 7. But freedom is not something that can be given to you. It is something you must take for yourself. Her audience included dozens of species that had been conquered by the hegemony over the centuries. They had learned to accept their fate, to survive by serving their masters. But the humans taught them something different. On Earth, Elena continued, and we have a saying, "Give me liberty or give me death." This is not a threat. It is a promise. We promise that we will never stop fighting for freedom, no matter the cost. She gestured to the humans in her crew, former teachers and doctors and engineers who had become soldiers in a war they never wanted to fight. "Look at us," she said. "We are not warriors by nature. We are explorers, builders, dreamers. But when faced with slavery, we chose to become something else. We chose to become free." The effect of her words could be measured in the reports reaching hegemony high command. Every world the humans visited experienced massive increases in resistance activity. Productivity in the slave colonies plummeted as workers began to sabotage their own facilities. Hegemony officials found themselves under constant threat of assassination by their own subjects. "Sir," the intelligence chief reported during their daily briefing, "I must inform you that we have lost effective control of 47 star systems, not to direct human attack but to local rebellion inspired by human contact." 47 systems? Admiral Torvik could not hide his shock. "How is that possible?" "The humans have introduced a new concept to galactic warfare, sir. They call it asymmetric resistance. Instead of conquering worlds with their own forces, they teach the local populations to conquer themselves." The admiral studied the reports in disbelief. On Altair 4, the weapons factories had been destroyed from within by their own workers. On Tau Ceti, the planetary governor had been overthrown by his own security forces. On Wolf 359, the entire population had simply walked away from their jobs and disappeared into the wilderness. "What do they want?" he asked. "The humans, I mean. What are their demands?" "That is the most troubling aspect, sir. They have made no demands. They seek no territory, no tribute, no political control. Their only stated goal is the complete abolition of slavery throughout the galaxy." Admiral Torvik felt a chill run through his body. An enemy that wanted territory could be negotiated with. An enemy that wanted resources could be bought off. But an enemy that wanted to destroy the very foundation of your civilization could only be stopped by total victory or total defeat. "Sir," called the communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from the core worlds. It appears that, sir, there has been an incident on Rigel Prime." "What kind of incident?" "The maximum security prison has been breached, sir. All political prisoners have been freed, including former Commander Zekthara. The prison break on Rigel Prime was the most audacious human operation yet. A small team of liberation specialists had infiltrated the most secure facility in hegemony space, freed over 10,000 political prisoners, and escaped without a single casualty. The team was led by Captain Jake Morrison, the same man who had piloted an asteroid into an alien destroyer during the siege. He had survived by ejecting at the last moment, and had spent months planning this mission. "Zekthara," he said as he cut the former commander's bonds, "we heard you tried to warn them about us." The old alien soldier looked at the young human with something approaching awe. "You came for me? But I am not even your species." "Doesn't matter," Jake replied. "You stood up for what was right. That makes you family." As they escaped through the tunnels Jake's team had carved through solid rock, Zekthara marveled at the human approach to warfare. They had not come to Rigel Prime to destroy it. They had come to save every being trapped within its prisons. "There is something you should know," Zekthara told Jake as they reached their extraction point. "The Council is planning something desperate. They are calling it the final solution." "What is it?" "They plan to destroy Earth itself, to make an example that will terrify the galaxy back into submission." Jake's expression hardened. "Then we better make sure they don't get the chance." As the Liberation Fleet carried 10,000 freed prisoners to safety, messages began transmitting across the galaxy. The humans had not just freed a prison. They had freed the leaders of resistance movements from dozens of worlds. Admiral Torvik received the final report as he prepared for sleep in his quarters. The numbers were staggering. Over 100 star systems in open rebellion, the Liberation Fleet estimated at over 5,000 ships, and hegemony authority crumbling throughout the outer rim. But the last line of the report made him realize that everything had changed. It was a simple statement from the human fleet. We are no longer the hunted. You are. In the depths of space, Secretary General Williams stood on the bridge of humanity's new flagship, the Terra Libertas. Around her, beings from dozens of species worked together as equals, united by their shared commitment to freedom. Madam Secretary, reported her tactical officer, a freed slave from Kepler 438b, long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements from the core worlds. It appears the hegemony is mobilizing everything they have. Williams nodded grimly. They are going to try to end this the only way they know how, with overwhelming force. Orders, ma'am? She looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them, the hegemony was preparing for one final, desperate battle. But she also knew that those same stars now sheltered millions of beings who had tasted freedom and would never accept slavery again. Send a message to all Liberation Fleet units, she said calmly. Tell them it's time to come home. Tell them Earth is calling her children back. The greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin, and for the first time since the war started, humanity would not be fighting alone. 2 years after the first human ship appeared in hegemony space, the greatest fleet in galactic history assembled near the core worlds. But it was not the hegemony fleet that impressed observers. It was the Liberation Alliance that had grown around humanity's cause. Over 10,000 ships from hundreds of different species moved in perfect formation toward the hegemony's last stronghold. Former slaves piloted vessels alongside their liberators. Ancient enemies flew wing to wing, united by their shared hatred of oppression. Admiral Chen, now commanding the Alliance fleet from the rebuilt Terra, looked out at the massive armada and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Pride in what they had accomplished, sadness for what it had cost. Sir, reported his communications officer, a young Vorthak named Velnas whose family had been freed from the labor camps. We are receiving a transmission from the Hegemony Council. They are requesting a meeting. After 2 years of war, now they want to talk? Chen shook his head. Put them through. The main screen flickered to life, showing High Counselor Vex Mari. She looked older than when Zekthara had first warned the Council about humanity. The arrogance was gone, replaced by desperate fear. Admiral Chen, she began, I am authorized to offer terms for a ceasefire. The hegemony is prepared to make significant concessions to end this conflict. What kind of concessions? Chen asked, though he already knew the answer would not be enough. We will reduce tribute requirements from subject worlds by 30%. We will improve conditions in the labor camps. We will allow limited self-governance for compliant species. Behind Chen, the bridge crew exchanged glances. Many of them were former slaves who had suffered under those very conditions. The offer was insulting. Counselor, Chen said quietly, let me explain something to you. This war was never about better conditions for slaves. It was about ending slavery entirely. Be reasonable, Vex Mari pleaded. The galactic economy depends on the current system. Chaos will follow if you destroy the established order. Then we will build a better order, Chen replied. One based on freedom instead of fear. He gestured to cut the transmission, but Vex Mari called out desperately, Wait, what do you want from us? What are your terms? Chen paused, looking at the faces of his crew. Humans and aliens, former enemies now united, all waiting for his answer. Unconditional surrender, he said finally. Complete dissolution of the hegemony. Freedom for all enslaved populations. And trials for those responsible for centuries of oppression. Impossible. Vex Mari snarled, her desperation turning to rage. You ask us to destroy ourselves. No, Chen said sadly. We ask you to become something better. The transmission ended and Chen turned to his tactical officer. Signal the fleet. Prepare for final assault. But before the Alliance fleet could move, something unexpected happened. Ships began breaking away from the hegemony formation. Not many at first, just a few scout vessels. Then entire squadrons. Within hours, half the hegemony fleet had defected to the Alliance. Sir, reported Velnas in amazement. We are receiving surrender transmissions from over 300 hegemony vessels. They are requesting permission to join the Alliance. Chen was not surprised. The Liberation Fleet had been broadcasting messages to hegemony crews for months, reminding them that many of their own species had been conquered and enslaved by the core worlds centuries ago. The crew members were fighting to maintain a system that had originally oppressed their own ancestors. Captain Sarah Kim, now commanding a task force of liberated worlds, received the surrender of an entire hegemony battle group. As the enemy commander, a proud Krill warrior named Thextan came aboard her ship. She could see the conflict in his eyes. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why are you showing mercy to those who would have destroyed you?" Sarah thought of all the battles they had fought, all the friends they had lost, all the pain that could have been avoided if the galaxy had chosen cooperation over conquest. "Because," she said, "we learned something important during this war. The cycle of revenge never ends unless someone chooses to break it." She gestured to her crew, which included former hegemony soldiers who had joined the alliance. "We are not here to replace one empire with another. We are here to make sure no empire can ever rise again." The final battle for the core worlds lasted only 6 hours. The remaining hegemony loyalists, led by Admiral Torvek, fought with the desperation of beings who knew their way of life was ending. But they were vastly outnumbered and fighting against crews that included their own former subjects. When Torvek's flagship was boarded by Alliance Marines, the old admiral expected to be executed as a war criminal. Instead, he found himself face to face with Commander Zekthara, who had volunteered to lead the boarding party. "Old friend," Zekthara said sadly, "it is over." Torvek looked around at the mixed crew of humans and aliens securing his ship. "What will happen to us?" "That depends," Zekthara replied, "on whether you choose to help build something better or cling to what was." 3 months later, the Galactic Council chambers had been transformed. Instead of floating thrones for the elite, there were simple seats arranged in a circle. Representatives from over 1,000 worlds sat as equals, debating the formation of the Free Galactic Coalition. Secretary General Williams, now serving as interim coordinator, looked around the chamber where Zekthara had once tried to warn about humanity's danger. The irony was not lost on her. "The question before us," she said, "is not how to govern the galaxy, but whether it should be governed at all." The debate that followed lasted for weeks. Some species wanted strong central authority to prevent future wars. Others demanded complete independence. A few suggested that humans should rule, given their role in the liberation. It was Zekthara who proposed the solution that would define the new galactic order. "We have learned," he told the assembly, "that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The hegemony fell because it concentrated too much authority in too few hands. Let us not repeat that mistake." His proposal was simple. The Free Galactic Coalition would have no permanent leaders, no standing armies, and no authority to tax or conscript. Instead, it would serve as a forum for cooperation and a last resort for defense against external threats. "But who will enforce the peace?" asked a representative from the former slave worlds. William stood to answer. "We will, all of us. The coalition will maintain rapid response fleets staffed by volunteers from member worlds. Any act of aggression against any member will be met by the combined forces of all members." "And if someone tries to recreate the hegemony?" asked another representative. "Then they will face the same fate as the original," Williams replied firmly. The vote to establish the Free Galactic Coalition was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, over 1,000 species had agreed to govern themselves through cooperation rather than conquest. 5 years after the coalition's founding, Admiral Chen stood in the military academy on New Geneva, addressing a graduating class of officers from dozens of different worlds. Among them were humans and Vorthak, former slaves and former masters, all united by their commitment to freedom. "You are the guardians of something precious," he told them. "Not an empire or a territory, but an idea. The idea that all sentient beings deserve to be free." In the front row, a young Krill officer raised her hand. "Admiral, what if we face an enemy too powerful for the coalition to defeat?" Chen smiled, remembering a similar question from his own youth. "Then we will do what humans have always done. We will find a way to win. But more importantly, we will make sure that even if we lose, the idea of freedom survives." He looked out at the mixed crowd of species, seeing in them the future that Zekthara had envisioned when he first warned the Council about humanity. "Your job is not to be the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced," Chen continued. "Your job is to remember why we fought this war. We fought so that no being would ever again have to choose between slavery and death." After the ceremony, Chen walked through the academy grounds with Zekthara, who now served as the coalition's first director of peace studies. The old warrior moved slowly, his artificial limbs creaking with age, but his mind remained sharp. "Do you think we succeeded?" Zekthara asked, as they watched young officers from dozens of species training together. Look around, Chen replied. 5 years ago, these species were enemies or strangers. Now they are partners. Their children will grow up free, with opportunities we could never have imagined. They paused at a memorial wall listing the names of all those who had died in the Liberation War. Human names were mixed with alien ones, soldiers and civilians, heroes and ordinary people who had chosen to fight for something greater than themselves. I sometimes wonder, Zekthara mused, what would have happened if the council had listened to my warning? Chen considered the question. Honestly, I think we would have found another way to free the galaxy. That is what humans do, we find a way. Even if it means war? Especially if it means war, Chen said firmly. But only as a last resort. We learned something important during this conflict. True victory is not defeating your enemies. It is turning them into friends. As they walked, they passed a group of children playing in the academy courtyard. The children represented a dozen different species, but they played together without regard for their differences. To them, the idea that anyone could own another being was as foreign as the idea that water could flow uphill. That, Chen said, pointing to the children, is our real victory. Not the battles we won, but the future we secured. In the years that followed, the Free Galactic Coalition would face many challenges. Pirates attempted to exploit the new system's openness. Authoritarian movements tried to recreate the old ways. External threats tested the Alliance's resolve. But each challenge was met with the same response that had defeated the hegemony: cooperation, determination, and an unshakable belief that freedom was worth any sacrifice. The humans who had started the revolution gradually faded from the spotlight. They served in coalition fleets and councils, but always as partners rather than leaders. Earth became one voice among thousands, though other species quietly acknowledged that it remained the coalition's moral center. On the 20th anniversary of the Liberation War's end, a ceremony was held on the former hegemony capital world. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered to honor those who had died for freedom and to reaffirm their commitment to the principles that bound them together. Secretary General Williams, now elderly but still sharp, delivered the keynote address from the same balcony where hegemony leaders had once proclaimed their dominion over the stars. 20 years ago, she said, a soldier named Zekthara stood before the Galactic Council and warned them about humanity. He told them we were dangerous. He was right. She paused, looking out at the massive crowd of beings from hundreds of worlds. We were dangerous to tyrants. We were dangerous to oppressors. We were dangerous to anyone who believed that might makes right, but we were never dangerous to those who chose freedom. The crowd erupted in applause that lasted for several minutes. When it finally died down, Williams continued. The greatest lesson of our war was not that humans are exceptional. It was that all beings are exceptional when they fight for what they believe in. The hegemony fell not because humanity was strong, but because the idea of freedom is stronger than any empire. As the ceremony concluded, Zekthara made his way to the podium for his own address. At nearly 200 years old, he was one of the last surviving witnesses to the galaxy's transformation. I was asked to speak today about the humans, he began, his voice still strong despite his age. About their courage, their determination, their refusal to surrender even when faced with impossible odds. He looked out at the crowd, seeing species that had been enemies now standing together as friends. But the truth is, there was nothing uniquely human about what they did. They simply remembered something that the rest of us had forgotten, that freedom is not a privilege to be granted by the powerful. It is a right to be claimed by the brave. He gestured to the mixed crowd before him. Look around you. Every species represented here has produced heroes. Every world has stories of beings who chose to fight rather than submit. The humans did not save the galaxy. They reminded the galaxy how to save itself. As Zekthara's words echoed across the gathering, children from dozens of worlds listened with wide eyes to stories of the Liberation War. They would grow up in a galaxy where slavery was a historical curiosity, where cooperation was the norm, and where the idea that any being could own another was as absurd as claiming to own the stars themselves. The memorial ceremonies concluded with the traditional reading of the Coalition Charter, signed on Earth but ratified by every member world. We hold these truths to be universal, that all sentient beings are created equal, that they are endowed with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights governments are instituted, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. As the words echoed across the former capital of tyranny, now transformed into a center of freedom, one thing became clear. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere in the crowd, elderly humans who had fought in those first desperate battles smiled as they watched alien children play together in peace, knowing that their sacrifices had not been in vain. The war was over. The peace had begun, and it would endure for as long as beings remembered that freedom is not free, but it is always worth the price paid to secure it.